And just remember, if you are watching on a dual screen, you're going to get whatchamacallit,
back
20-second like feedback. So, all right, guys, we're live, man. Welcome to National Fire Radio Live. We're here tonight with the crew of the Instagram Forcible Entry Friday crew. Fellas, awesome to have you all here tonight, man. Thanks for joining us. Wow, you're a lively group. Thanks for chiming in on that one. Ugly bastards. All right, listen. So here's the good deal, man. We got 6 of you in here tonight. You all come from different departments, different coasts, all over the country. I'm going to do a brief interview a brief introduction of who you guys are, and then we're going to circle back real quick. And I just want to talk about, I'd love for you guys just to hop in for the first 5-10 minutes and just talk about the concept of Forcible Entry Friday on Instagram, the importance of your pages, why you guys do what you do and spend the time to put out free content to make the job better. So I want to start off, Jeff Hakola. Did I say that right, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
Beautiful. Out of the West Coast, city of Merced. He's an engineer on a truck and Blue Collar Fire Training Network. Brother, welcome. This is the first time you and I've met, so I'm looking forward to chatting with you tonight, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Next in line is Matt Paglione. Matt comes from a 4-letter department on the East Coast, better known for the Boogie Down Truck page on Instagram. Matt, thank you so much for being here. It's never a privilege to talk to you.
You know what? The pleasure is always on this end, and I appreciate being here tonight.
You're a true gentleman tonight. I appreciate that. In the middle of my screen, it might be a little bit different for everybody else. I got Joe Grossi. Joe's a captain out of a urban department in New Jersey. Joe has his training page under his own name, joe.grossi.jr on Instagram. Joe, thanks for joining us, pal.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Of course, brother. Good seeing you. Next in line for me is Battalion Chief Nick Martin out of Salisbury, North Carolina, combat ready fire training. Nick Martin or N Martin 33 on Instagram. Chief, no surprise or no stranger to anybody probably watching tonight. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good, bro. Always a good conversation with you and your group. So
I love it.
Glad to be here.
That's awesome. Thank you, brother, for the compliment. I appreciate that. Drew Evans, you're next in line for me, brother. A technician out of Washington, D.C., captain of the tower at Kentland 33. Can be found on Instagram at Andrew18752. Andrew, welcome, brother. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you being here tonight. Last but not least, Top Floor Tactics, Mickey Farrell out of another 4-letter department off the East Coast. Mick, thanks for being here, pal.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
Oh, no. Oh, no. He's dipping out already. Mick. Mickey's got Top Floor Tactics. He did something with me last night on Clubhouse. We had a good conversation last night, man. So I always appreciate your word and sharing. And so last but never least, Rob Ridley. How are you, brother?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I've been jamming you up a bunch lately. We've had a lot of stuff going on lately.
We've been shaking and moving.
Yeah, shaking and moving. I appreciate. Yeah, there you go. All right, good. So, fellas, soft introductions there. Everybody's going to get to know you as time ticks on here. But what I'd like to do real quick is figure out why we're even here tonight, right? I mean, how did this whole thing start? Was there somebody? I mean, I know each of you have a Instagram page and social media following. You guys are taking your own time to put out free content that's bettering the fire service, bettering the industry. I'd love to start this conversation before we get into details of Forcible Entry, but I'd really like to figure out why you guys do what you do and how we got here tonight as a group, and you guys backing each other up on Fridays and putting out some nuggets. Anybody want to hop in and start with that one? Please. Pretty please.
I mean, I guess I was the one that put the 4 of us together originally, and then we added on 2 in the new year of 2021. But I've known Mick now for a little bit, and we were conversating over some beverages after a lecture. I can't remember exactly where we were, but we just talked about the lack of true, realistic information out there about forcible entry. And then we said, you know what, why don't we get together and we can probably start posting every once in a while about this. I said, I'd like to get some different perspectives, though. Who can we bring? Who else can we get involved with this? And right away, Captain Joe came up. And so we got him on board. And I had met Andrew through an unfortunate circumstance. And I said, you know what, he's a great resource I can use out of the DC area. So let's get him on board as well. So we kind of had 4 sort of different perspectives, but they were also a little too closely tied. So at that point, you know what, we reached out to some friends on the West Coast, and we were able to bring on 2 others. We got our brother from the West Coast, and then we got our brother from down south in Nick Martin.
I love it. Well, this is a good group, man. I've gotten to know many of you, Drew and Jeff. I'm looking forward to getting to know you guys as well. But the other 4, I've certainly have done many projects with and gotten to know pretty well. So I will say that this is a fantastic crew. You know, Pat, you bring up a good point, right? You talk about the lack of real world, street smart firefighting and forcible entry, right? We're targeting forcible entry here. That's what you guys talk about all the time. What is that lack, man? Like, why do you see that there's a disregard for reality versus, theory based or training based? You know,
to me, it's really 2 things. Number one, I think guys are really focusing too much on the prop issue. We all have something that we're able to use, whether it's at a fire academy or our local firehouse, or when we go to work, we have something, either it's built by ourselves or it was purchased commercially. And there's plenty of different options out there. But unfortunately, they're all the same in most respects, and they don't truly mimic what we see out there in the real world. And the other big thing, that I should say, let me just leave it right there. That was probably the biggest thing. The other maybe little tidbit I'd say to that is a lot of people focusing on the respectable forcible entry. And I'm all about that. I understand there's a time and a place for that. But when we actually are encountering a fire situation, we need to be proficient at our skills of truly conventional forcible entry to get inside in a timely manner.
Beautiful. So, Drew, let's talk about this. Then I'm going to steer the conversation to you, my man. We were throwing some ideas before we started, and you had the idea of discussing from the training prop to reality. You want to hit on that topic?
Yeah, I'll start off, but everyone chime in. And just as we're talking about it when Pag was talking, I think probably in the last 10 years, the availability of commercially made or homemade, you can find plans for these things everywhere. Door props has become much more prevalent, which is good, right? So you went from not having any resource in the firehouse to practice these skills to now almost every firehouse you walk into has some form of a door prop in there. But now we've gotten away from looking at real doors either, and it could be you just don't get in your department, in your hometown, you don't have the call volume, you don't have the fire load, you're not going out forcing doors every day out in the wild. That's fine. Or on the reverse, they're in every academy and we just beat up these blue doors all day long. You think, I did that, I'm good. And we're creating a culture of people know how to beat a blue door to death, but they run into a real door on the fire floor and it embarrasses them. So it's good that we have these props and they're available, but people are learning how to beat the prop, not using it as what it is and just a tool to teach finite tactics over and over and over again, right? But you have to compound that with some real world knowledge. The people that are instructing these guys on the doors have to have forced a couple of real doors in their life and be able to tell them, hey, this is not how a real door is going to react. This isn't how a rim lock or a deadbolt or a fox lock reacts on a metal inward door.
That's a good point. Nick, what are your thoughts on that, brother?
Well, so, I started as a volunteer in a 200 call a year fire department, outside Philadelphia, the hometown where I grew up. And, probably I'll tell you, most of the early years in my fire service, the idea of forcing doors, wasn't even really on my radar. It wasn't something that we did very often. And kind of as Drew was alluding to, when we did, it was a bad outcome because we didn't do it very often. And then even when I went to the fire academy in DC, no shot on the instructors, but back when I went, the forcible entry training in my academy was brief and it sucked. I mean, it was a 3-piece Halligan bar, and it was, Drew, I assume they've replaced those doors on the old burn building down there now, probably with Trox fires, but whatever these things were with like wooden dowels.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't surprise me entirely. Yeah. But I mean, it was awful. It was, I'm less than 4 hours, like awful. Like I cut a wood pallet with a rotary saw. That was my forcible entry training, and then I went out to the truck, and, number one is I always wanted to go to the truck because numerically the trucks went to more fires. Right. So that's how I got into being on the truck is, there was half of them as there were engines. So, and then like when I got on the truck, I kind of fell in love with the forcible entry thing. Like some guys, I think, fall in love with the roof thing and like, or maybe the drive-in or whatever, I love all those things, but like I loved the technicality of the forcible entry. So I always loved running the irons, or the bar as we call it in DC. And, and then I was out with my technician one day and we were on some vacants on 14th Street Northwest. And like when we ran the bar, we always pretty much ran it alone, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's what we did. And I think that's kind of what they still do. And so you had to have 4 stores by yourself a lot, even honestly, if there were other people around you. And we went to the rear of this vacant, and this guy showed me, it was the first time in my life I ever saw the idea of placing the blade of an axe in the seam of a door to get a bite on an outward door. And it was like, like my mind was blown. And, that was something that had never come up anywhere before. And then, not to be long-winded, but, I got on the circuit, by accident, started teaching in the early 2000s. And, I remember I met Mike Farrell when he was first kind of bringing out the blue door. And I spent a day in Mike Farrell's driveway. His neighbors were hating us because we were banging on this damn door in his driveway, probably one of his first ones, like all day. And I think to what Drew was saying a little bit, this is a guy that had done a lot of real forcible entry. And like, I learned a ton of stuff on his thing. And the thing was, like, when we got that, and started taking that around and teaching people, they're like, oh my God, these guys have a door prop. It's amazing. And we that was the unique thing, is that we had this thing we could bring them and they would force doors. Now nobody cares. Like it's almost not even worth owning your own door prop, if you do training stuff, because everybody's already got one.
Yeah.
And that has its pros and its cons, So I look at it 2 ways. I look at it, with Matt's perspective and Drew's perspective and the other guys, that it's a prop door and you're fooling yourself if you think that's preparing you entirely for reality. But I also remember, when I was in a small volunteer fire department in a pretty nice suburban community that did not have the opportunity to force a lot of real doors anywhere, and back then did not even have any type of prop door. So I think it cuts both ways a little bit. I think Drew kind of hit it, is you just got to be aware of what you're dealing with. Like if that's all you got, that's all you got, and it's better than nothing. But don't let yourself think that has made you, ready for everything you're going to find in the street.
No, I love that, man. I think that's good. Go ahead. Somebody was hopping in.
Yeah, and Chief, real quick, I started off very similarly in a department in New Jersey that ran 200 runs a year, and pretty much all private dwellings. And what we lacked was we weren't focusing on forcible entry because of the fact that we didn't have that hotel, or we might have had that one nursing home that had a few metal doors. And now things have kind of, due to the growth and development in the areas, you're seeing that more and more, because that's why don't you train on this more? Oh, it's because we don't really have any of these. So the wood door, we're just going to go up and we're going to still boot it, or we're just going to, we're going to hit it with our bar, our Halligan. But in reality, you need to be proficient when you do get that apartment job, or you do get that nursing home fire.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah, go ahead, brother. Yeah.
I think with the door, the door is a great tool. Like Drew said early on, that it's all about who's teaching the door, though. And that plays a huge part. I think what's lacking a lot of it is you have a rough skill set without the mindset. So if you have the wrong mentor showing you how to use that door, it's very similar to going to the driving range, right? And you're a golfer and you're just hacking away. And then you'll fall in love with golf, like you'll fall in love with the fire service. And you go out in the driving range every day. And eventually you get to play golf, and you go out and you play 9, and then you play 18. You're getting better, but your swing sucks. So transform that to the fire ground. forcing the door is still going to suck if you didn't learn from the beginning with the right guy on that door. So the fact there's a door in every firehouse is great, but it's also a detriment. The fact that you're not getting that true mindset to understand what the true skill set is when you're developing these skills. Same thing, Joe's a baseball player. I'm sure he could agree with me on this, that you get a bad swing, you go to the batting cages, eventually you're going to approach the pitcher. He's going to throw you a curveball. You've never seen it. And you're like, fuck, what just happened, man? And that's pretty much like my take on the door, is that if you have the proper tools in the beginning, it's great for the long run. Proper tools or non-proper tools in the beginning, it is detrimental to your career.
That's good. Joe, do you want to hop in on that, brother?
Yeah, I think Mickey's playing his mind trick right now because he was just in my head with everything I was just about to say. So
you should have jumped in before.
He's using the mind tricks on me that he always does. No, these guys just touched on a lot of good stuff. And, I think the point to drive home, as Mick said, I'm a baseball player. You can hit off of a tee 100 times a day, 365 days a year. When you step in the box and you get a curveball or you get a fastball, you're taking those fundamentals that you practice on and those little finite details that you're practicing on off the tee. And if you can't apply it when it's game time, you have to realize that there's differences that approach themselves. So then transfer that to the fire ground. If you're only responding on how a wooden dowel snaps with a metal heavy duty steel door works, and then you get surprised when you have spring on an actual door in an apartment building, it's better than nothing, but it's giving that, pardon the pun, but that false sense of security. So, it's definitely better than nothing, but you also, to Mick's point, you want to have somebody walk you through and detail the differences and show my big thing is it's a play on words, but I always try to differentiate between training and a drill. A drill is more of this is what we have and then have at it, whereas training is a little bit more step-by-step. And we go through the details and we walk through the actual little principles and the little intricacies of the actual operation. So, to all these guys' points, I think, the props are good, but you have to be able to now take the repetitions that are being worked on and then be able to apply them in the field.
No, I like that. Jeff, let me ask you this, brother. I want to bring you into the conversation a little bit here. So as these guys are talking about this, a lot of it makes sense, right? And so the thing is, though, is that what happens is you get that kid that's thumping on that door, right? We train into them sets and reps. I mean, that's all you see all over the internet, sets and reps, right? But then we're not teaching the audible. And I would say probably 8.5 out of 10 times, there's an audible when it comes to forcible entry. Doors not peeling. I saw a post where somebody was talking about how doors truly peel versus, a training prop, right? Just something simple like that. How important is it for us to teach the theory and the ability to understand theory and practicality so that when the audible needs to happen, you're there?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the key factor here, right? And I think when I use a training door, my main strategy is to teach bar management. It's how you're using the bar, which way you're spinning it, space dependent, and all that. The doors are going to flex, and on the West Coast, we're very. I mean, at least the doors we're forcing. We're not forcing Charlie size strip malls. So, we're banging on residential, single story and 2-story, and the baseball swing works. So you get away with a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, when you do get a true door to force, it's all about feel to me, right? Like, when you stick the bar in there and it's giving you that feel, you have to know what that means. And I think those props, they give you a little bit of sense of, doing some work, but at the same time, I always teach when I'm teaching my classes, like that force has to be violent, right? Like when you're camming on a bar, like it's violent. It's not, you're not just sitting there going, man. Like, it's a violent move, and you got to get in there and feel what the door is, giving you and react to it. So we're a little bit different, than the most of the guys here on the east side. But we get away with cheating, right? I'm not gonna lie, it's a cheat. We can shove an axe in a gap and beat it to death, and it's gonna give us the open we need, because we're just forcing, residential doors for the most part. And it's a hard balance, going back and forth between, commercial doors and all that. And I've seen it. I'm not gonna lie, like Nick was saying, I never had any forcible training in my career. When I started, I was 15 years old, and the only thing the Halligan did was hold the hood open on a car fire, right? Nobody ever taught me anything about it. And then, just watching and going to a couple classes and learning. I use yoga as a term, it's like you got to, body positioning and all that. Like it's key because kids just don't understand, or the young guys just don't understand, how to manipulate a bar. And I don't know, it's a fine balance between props and acquireds, and then just getting the job experience too. You add fire to anything and who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Good. I appreciate that, man. So something you said got me thinking a little bit here while I'm sitting here, maybe to kind of roll into the next conversation real quick. Knowing your district, you guys, I mean, obviously knowing where you guys all come from and the pedigree that you have, you guys really are faced with a multitude of different scenarios on any individual day. You guys go from, steel barricaded to single family, wood frame, hollow core, solid, Bilcos, you name it, right? I mean, you guys you run the gamut. So you guys certainly have a strong game in being able to understand the theory and put that to practicality. What about sizing up your district, right? So I'm thinking like a lot of kids that are going to be checking this out, and, the majority of our country are not urban settings, so they're more suburban and rural communities. Typically, you'll find more of the same homes and buildings in those communities. Talk about real quick just the importance of knowing your district, and then snowballing into what Jeff was talking about how important it is to know your hand tools and become intimate with them. If I got to pick, I will.
I'll jump in there.
Please.
I've worked in a couple of different places, which, I think is to my strength. I mean, I've the first truck company I was on in DC was first due to the White House. And I've worked in, the middle of nowhere, South Carolina, where, an alligator was on the roof of the house on fire, and I will tell you, like, before. So when you think about those differences in environment, I think a lot of people think that, like, the forcible entry challenges are just for, the big city, or they're just for the urban ghetto or things like that. And I can tell you from experience, some of the craziest stuff I've ever seen has been in the middle of nowhere, like some homemade fabricated weirdo stuff. So just because you don't think that you're in that district that has that challenge does not mean that you're not in that district that has that challenge. Rich people are the craziest people in the universe. So you might be in a really nice neighborhood and find some of the weirdest stuff on those buildings there. So, I think, it always excited me. It excites me still going around the district and just like seeing a building or seeing a door and be like, oh man, what about that? How would I approach that? What tools would I use for that or this, and I think that it kind of just starts with that passion. Like I alluded to earlier, was like just I just have a passion for the technical nature of forcible entry and how variable it can be and how challenging it can be. And if that speaks to you, then, I think that you can find that, there, in your district, wherever it is you are.
I'll tell you, it's crazy how many pictures I get sent. I'm sure everybody else is in a similar boat. How many pictures I get sent from people all around because we do this Forcible Entry Friday, and the weirdest stuff is not necessarily in an urban setting.
I get that. I get it. Go ahead.
Right, Jeremy, and it's amazing. People are very passionate about protecting their items, and they're going to become very intuitive and very imaginative to come up with something to secure that. And it's incredible when what they will go to, the lengths they will go to protect their stuff.
No, for sure. And I agree with you wholeheartely. I think where I was going with that conversation was truly to say that you guys have more of the ability daily, more runs, more of a creative environment that offers more potential up front. I know the challenges are out there everywhere. I get that completely.
Which is, and that's part of the reason why we started this again, is because of the, diversity that we see. We're going to give that kid who maybe saw a fox lock, who's never seen it before, or ran into a police lock, or ran into they saw this bolt pattern on an outward door in the rear of a commercial, and they're going to say, you know what, I'm not exactly sure what that was, but they're going to go ahead and they're going to be able to see something that we put out a couple of weeks ago, and oh, you know what, I might have seen something about that on Instagram. I'm going to, I saw that on a page. Oh, all right. You know what? Mick Farrell had something on that. Chief Nick, Drew had something on that, whoever it was. And they can actually take that information back to their guys and relay what they saw and have a good understanding of it and be able to kind of, maybe even reach out to us and say, hey, you know what, you did a little something on this. I had these questions about it. Where can we go from here?
It's funny that you bring that up, not to jump in and dive down story lane, but just since you said that, I had never seen a fox lock, right? And then I got into it, and like started reading on the internet and talking to guys, and I learned what this was, and I was like, wow, that sounds tough, and it sounds cool, and like, man, I want to force that. And like in the I'm not a hunter. I think Mickey is a hunter, judging by his background. But but in the same way that I imagine like a hunter wants to like slay a majestic elk, or a reindeer, maybe, I don't know. Like I wanted to slay a foxlock, and because I had just seen it, right? And so I remember one day we ran one on the rear of a place in DC, and I finally got to get one, and I was like, man, number one, I was so excited because I just wanted to do that for my first time. And but the only, like, if I had never read about it or heard about it, like that was the first time I'd ever forced. Fortunately, I had read about it and heard about it and seen it somewhere before that, or I would have had absolutely no idea what to do. So I think that there's a benefit there to thinking about, like, to even studying things that you might not think that you have, or you might not think that you encounter often, because one day that's going to be the door you're standing in front of.
Jeremy,
Awesome.
can I jump in about the tools real quick?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. And just so people know, while we're talking, we do have a photo up. I wanted the panel to see this photo. We're gonna hop on this photo. So go ahead, Mickey. Talk to me about tools, because we didn't really hit on that yet.
Yeah, it's just so I always say that the tools should be the extension of your body. It should be natural for you to use these tools. And it's not natural for everyone, and it takes time, it takes patience. You're not just born a firefighter and you have these tools and all of a sudden you're forcing doors. And that's where a lot of people get mixed up in, is they get frustrated with the fact they don't have the opportunity to force these doors like many of us do. And they read these posts and they're like, oh, okay, but we just don't do it. The key is just holding that tool, right? Feeling it in your hand, making that extension of your body, being intimate with your tools. That's what makes you a better firefighter down the long, where you can take that tool and apply it to any situation because it's the extension of your arm. And when you have that mindset with the tool and that comfortable feelings with it and the natural momentum with it, you can force anything from a fox lock to, you could go on a stupid run and have to force a mailbox, So forcible entry isn't just that steel case door where you got to break through and be this hard charging firefighter. It could be that step back, do something basic, but having that tool and understanding how to use it is what it's all about.
Cool, man. Thank you. And I agree. And as you were talking, the other guys were holding up their Halligans to show them off. So these guys probably sleep with them at night. And I guess that's part of becoming an extension of yourself. So I get it. I know. Oh, anyway, we'll stop right there. So listen, all right. Any other comment?
You know what? Just because Mick brought that up, and I'm so glad. No, Jeremy, I'm going to leave that one alone. Believe me.
Attaboy.
We'll talk about that the after get together, after gathering. But what Mickey said is so important, and I think he posted something recently about taking care of your tools. And Mick, I'll probably let you run with this because we had a job yesterday. I believe yesterday, and we came back and it was 2:30 in the afternoon, and of course, and we hadn't eaten yet. So the first thing you want to do is eat lunch. But what did we do? We put our tools back in order, and that includes cleaning them all up, making sure that you take out you take out the burrs in your Halligan that you just used to force a couple doors. Making sure everything's clean, everything's put away in order. But really, I want Mick to speak on the fact of how we can tune our tools to make them more effective on the fire ground.
Well, I mean, I know we have guys in here that actually tune tools to a point of reference, but as far as tuning them for pride is a little different. It's part of who you are, and it's part of your reputation in the fire department, in the firehouse, and it's part of your reputation within that company. You can tell everything, right, Matt? I mean, you can chime in, but you can tell everything by the company's tools and how clean they are and how they present themselves with their tools. Like I said, the tools is an extension of your body. If you take care of your body, you take care of your tools. Every time you walk in a firehouse, you see a rusty tool. I think twice about working with these guys. I think twice about how they're going to operate on the fire floor. I think twice about what they're going to serve me for lunch. Dirty tools equals a dirty firehouse equals dirty playing on the fire ground. It's all about that camaraderie after. Nothing better than cleaning tools with the brothers, all snotted up, right? Sweaty, cleaning tools before you do anything. 4 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, whatever it is You get together, you clean the tools, and you get back in order to go to the next fire.
Good
Absolutely
points,
love it. And you are
Yep.
correct. I know Drew is real big with the tool modification. But your pride factor right there is spot on.
Well, let's talk about let's engage Drew real quick on that conversation, because tuning your Halligan, up until the last few years, truly, I don't think it was a real popular, prevalent item in the fire service that many people did outside of, say, said companies. Drew, you want to just run into that? We don't have to go into specific detail on every little thing and so on, but the importance of it or why we do it.
Yeah, I don't know. It definitely has gotten more widespread. That's always been my thing. I mean, even like when I was on probation in DC, right? That like the tradition is the probationer sit at the wash desk unless you're doing something productive, you're learning something. So I mean, I polished and cleaned every damn tool on the ladder truck because I didn't want to sit at the desk. I found myself something to do. And it's just kind of carried through my career. I'm the guy that doesn't matter what time of day it is. I'm back in the tool room doing something, right? Sometimes productive, sometimes, I'm sending sparks for no good reason. But I carry the same train of thought as Mick. Like that tool or that ladder truck, that tool, everything on it, it's all a reflection of me, my guys. So we're going to stand tall all the time. So my tool modification or the axes or bars is more just like a hobby for me that it kind of expanded, but I would say 80% of it is pride and a little bit of added function. You're squaring the shoulders off of the bar and tuning the forks and the adds. Beyond that, I don't go too much farther than that. But it's about keeping them clean, keeping them presentable, and just some minor modifications that make a little difference.
Perfect, man.
Hey, Jeremy,
Can
I add a couple of things on there?
Absolutely, man.
So, I want to kind of confess to my own ignorance, of course, maybe now, but of course, when I was younger, because, as I said earlier, like I got on the truck and I got ate up with forcible entry. Like it's what I wanted to do. So I searched around and I learned about locks and I learned about modifications. And, a couple of things began to happen is, I wanted every modification that I saw out there to be on my Halligan bar. I saw, rings, down by the forks, and there were wide adzes, there were notches to indicate the depth, and squared shoulders and, filed forks and all that kind of stuff. And it took me a while to understand that not every modification I saw was applicable to my district, and even more specifically to my riding position. And it took me a while to understand that, like, on the company I was on at that time, that there might be some value in the bar or the irons firefighters Halligan being set up differently than the tiller or the roof Halligan's firefighter, just by virtue of where they were going to end up and what they were going to end up doing. Is not everything made sense. And just because, and it took me a while to figure out also, is just because, like, when you were young and you're trying to just be edgy, like just doing something different seems cool. Like if it's different, it must be cool, right? And I didn't realize that just because it was a modification I could make didn't mean that it was a modification that I should make. The other thing I had never been taught was how to work with metal. I did not come up with that background. I did not come up with that in my history. So I was the guy that was taking the forks of the Halligan and putting them on the grinding wheel. And I know, like, that just made everybody's hair stand up, but like nobody taught me that until somebody taught me that, you know what I mean? And I think we take for granted that a lot of people don't know how to work with metal appropriately. They don't know, like, just the techniques of working with metal, about filing or polishing or grinding or what you should do where or when. And they don't understand that maybe not every single modification you see out there is something that you should do for, your position in your district.
Cool. Good points. Thank you. All right, listen, let's get rolling here. You guys wanted to do some tactical stuff. You wanted to talk about some pictures. We threw a couple of pictures into the group here, and so on. This is a pretty cool setup. It's a nice Timex, and the engagement ring is on the wrong finger. So I'm trying to figure out why the rock's on the wrong finger. So it must have been a bad night or something, but I don't get it. But anyway, anybody want to hop in on this? Because I'll tell you right now, I'm not the lock expert. So I'm not even the guy that wants to even try to entertain starting to talk about this stuff. That's why we have you guys in here tonight. Anybody want to start hopping on this and just start talking about some potentials, possibilities, things to look for, maybe the size up from the sidewalk up to the door and checking the door before we start to pry and force, or wherever you want to go with this. I will pick someone.
I'll go.
Do it.
I got a couple thoughts, and I'll put myself out there because there's some guys on this call that especially lately have done more of this than I have. But from what I see here, on the other side of the door, I anticipate what you're going to see is two key cylinders, right? One of them looks like it's going to have a guard or a shroud over it, and the other one maybe not. I can't tell from here, right? But I'll say this is a door that makes me favor something that I know some people don't like, and I am a shock the door guy, and I'll put that out there because I know some people don't like that. But when I say shock the door, I mean striking the door, high, middle, and low on this door, probably with the head of the Halligan instead of the fork. And I'm not really expecting the door to open there, but what I would expect in this situation is to feel resistance in some places that if these devices didn't exist, I wouldn't have felt resistance. And what that does for me is change my starting point, because without that, if I just go for a gap and I just start to set maybe set the forks to the Halligan, then what had happened to me a couple times in these situations is that you end up already committed to a spot that you're not going to get because there are more things there than you knew that were there. So, in this situation, I would hope that would help me kind of identify, whoa, there's some things above a normal door here, and maybe kind of put my starting position in a different location to kind of get those obstacles one by one rather than trying to get them all at once. So I don't know. I'll be curious to see what the other guys have to think about that.
Yeah.
Just a point of interest, you're probably going to see two shrouds because you actually look at the police lock. There is bolts there.
Okay. Yeah.
Very hard to see, Chief, but it is there.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a lot of bolts that don't make sense with the rest of the picture.
But,
like
yeah,
the four that are surrounding that top rim lock. I'm not really sure what's going on there. That could be a cover over another cover over that rim lock on the top.
You're right. So you should actually have 3 cylinders on the other side.
You would have 3 showing on the other side.
Yeah.
Or should have.
So.
But I think if it's like anything else, and I don't want to take too much, but I'd love to hear Joe jump in just because he's still here. And I know he's in a precarious situation that he might have to leave us at any point. But Joe, how about size up when you walk up to the door and what you should expect to see on something like this?
Yeah. So size up with everything on the job, kind of, that dictates what you do. If you're not paying attention to what's going on, you might miss the obvious. You might miss the not so obvious. This looks like a typical apartment in an area that we would run in. As the guys alluded to, that top rim lock, it's going to have some type of protective covering, like plating over it, just like shrouding, as somebody mentioned. Then working the way down, the door's kind of beat up. It looks like it had either that chain attachment point has either been rotated or it's a new one. And working down, that's got the police lock, then you got another rim, and then, obviously every door has a knob on it. So you're going to have some type of a knob lock, maybe a deadbolt attached to that. So it's a pretty, not too heavily secured door, but you have multiple locks. And, that'll obviously, to me, if I see that on a door, I'm thinking that, my neighborhood is going to come into account to say, all right, what kind of a neighborhood am I in? Is the police lock there from back in the day, or is it functioning? That kind of could be tipped off based on the neighborhood you're in. And, as the guys mentioned too earlier, you don't necessarily, you don't want to stereotype or lean toward, oh, I'm in a shitty neighborhood, and that automatically means that I'm going to be in a heavily secured area. You could be in a brownstone and find something that's heavily secured just due to the environment. But yeah, just at a quick glance of what we could see, I'm thinking at least 4 locks, and then obviously, if the police is going to be engaged or not, that's for people that aren't familiar with them, there's usually like a 5 to 6 foot pole that's going to now, set into the door as well as into the floor, just back. So pretty much creating like that geometric triangle for strength. It's in essence bracing the door in the closed position.
And that Joe, and just for my knowledge too, to be honest with you, that rod then goes and it's bored into the floor, correct? And then it acts as, so if that,
the rod.
The rod. So if that's engaged, you have a good understanding that the apartment most likely is occupied unless they left through another means, correct?
Correct. And just as you said, that's just going to work as a brace. I'm personally not a shock the door guy. I understand, the logic behind it, and I think it makes sense. I think like any other tactic that we use, it should, we shouldn't necessarily just do things for the sake of doing it. We should do things with purpose. And if you want to create good habits with doing that, that's by all means fine, because if that police lock is engaged, you're definitely going to have heavy duty resistance there. And then obviously, contingent upon how many of those rim locks and, if the knob lock, if there's a deadbolt there, that is going to be heavy duty resistance right to the middle of that door. The other thing that I'm just thinking about, which, back to Pags' point with the size up, if you do start getting and working on that door, the minute you open that or get a bite on the door and you see a chain engaged, that should automatically hit, to your point, Jeremy, is that the apartment's occupied.
Yeah.
And I'm a believer in that everything is occupied until we get in and dictate otherwise. But that
of course.
That should kind of give you that confirmation that, hey, somebody's inside unless they hit, the fire escape or a window or, some other means of egress.
Got it. Drew, Drew, I'm sorry. Go ahead, man. Who was talking?
Just can you guys kind of talk, because like I won't see this lock most likely in my district, and I think there's other people who are watching that may come. It's possible we can come across it. And going to your points about the forcible entry door, where would we start on this door when it comes to like working this door? Nick, you kind of said like if you went in one spot with that, with sizing it up, you're not going to move anything because there's so much stuff going on. So where would you start with this?
Well,
force?
What I principally meant there is on most doors, you're going to expect there to be locks in the middle, in that kind of the torso height, and obviously on the other side of this door, you're going to see some key cylinders that are going to tell you that, there's a lock there. So principally what I'm looking for, when I talk about, hitting that door is really the high and the low. Like I'm looking to see, do I have a lock mechanism up high that is not showing itself like a slide bolt or something like that, or same kind of thing down low. Because what I don't want to do is get this door partially or nearly open and then realize that I have an obstacle that is above me. And now I'm already partially fatigued. Maybe I've got the door open a little bit and I've got some smoke or conditions coming out in the hallway. And now I'm trying to work that higher level kind of thing. So that's, in the middle, what I'm talking about there is really just is not going to tell you a whole lot. It's going to tell you there's a lot of locks. And so that's kind of what I think you're going to get out of that. Now, what I do want to say, because I think you were alluding to the police lock and saying that you don't think you would see one, is, they sell them, and I was trying to find it on my phone to send it to you. They sell a version at like Lowe's and Home Depot. It's just like a U shape that goes underneath, a door handle, and then a foot that goes into the floor, and you won't even know that. There's no indicator from the outside that exists. So it is something that absolutely everybody, it's not by definition a police lock, but it's the same kind of lock, and absolutely anybody can find that in their district.
It's crazy. $20. I had a buddy and he was in a very residential area down the Jersey Shore, and he had it up against his the knob of his front door. And it really just depends on the flooring. If you got a carpeted floor there, and I'd never seen one or never forced it, that situation. And people were telling me very hard to force if it's on a rugged area. If it's a smooth surface, it'll slide pretty easily. But to the point of what the chief was saying, I'm not a big fan of shocking the door. For this, I would go just below that top shroud, kind of in between the locks, and start working from there. And as soon as I put the ads in, I'm going to know if that top is engaged, and I'm going to know if that middle one's starting to flex, and if it is engaged. I understand what he's talking about as far as exerting the energy, but if that door starts to flex open, I'm going to know that there's not much on that top. And I'm going to, the biggest thing we're seeing out there with the real doors is having to get right on top of that lock especially for our finishing moves, because if not, the door is just flexing way too much. This is a much older door, definitely not, definitely doesn't appear to be something that's an insert or has been replaced.
Yeah,
awesome. Drew,
I got two things to add.
Yeah, do it.
So one, and it's not talking about police locks and not really having any idea that they're there to begin with. The kind of cool thing about a rim lock, you can install a rim lock without the cylinder. So you can put a rim lock in the back of that door and not have any indication that's there from the front. It's very rare. That doesn't happen often, but it can be done. The weak part of rim locks is the mounting hardware. It's a big beefy lock. That thing's not going to fail. That drop bolt is not going to fail. It's going to be the mounting hardware. And to what Pag was saying, and this is kind of another, I don't want to say disconnect, but it's the next step that isn't really taught that much. People are taught to start 6 inches above or below, or 8 inches above or below the lock, and go from there. And you'll get good flex in the door. You'll be able to get your gap, but that's a beefy lock. All that energy we're exerting, if I'm flexing that door, right, that's absorbing some of that energy. I need to deliver all that energy, whether it's in a move of the Halligan or if I'm striking, to that lock. I'm trying to defeat that lock. And what a lot of times happens is you might deform that door enough or get enough of a gap where you might be able to see that rim lock, put the forks on there, and drive the son of a bitch off the door. You're gonna break that mounting hardware and blow that lock right off that door.
Hey, Jeremy, I'm gonna jump in here real quick. All right,
do it.
So, Drew, exactly what you said about being close to that lock. I mean, the book's always 6 inches above or below. I think it's a little bit outdated with the way doors flex, but even without the way it's flexed, the way locks are built, I'm more into that 2 inches above or below zone, if not just almost directly on it. With this door itself, when you size it up, at least when I'm sizing up from the inside, my bet is that it's probably not a bad neighborhood. It was probably someone's renting this apartment. The bottom lock they lost the key for, never been engaged in 30 years probably. The police lock, they don't know what the fuck that thing is. So they went out and they bought this new thing. The super threw on this new lock, and that's the only lock engaged probably. Just my assumption on it. But like you said, closer to the lock, the better. I don't believe in shocking the door, probably almost never. But that's just my opinion, the way I was trained, the way I was brought up into it. A good solid boot push on the bottom of that door would tell me that bottom lock's engaged or not. And if it is, then maybe you come off 2 to 3 inches in between. But you're definitely going to be somewhere in that middle point to start. Let's talk about something else, though. This is good to talk about this and how we're going to attack this with the Halligan bar. But floor above, this is probably a multiple dwelling. If you're on the floor above, and let's break it down to a bigger scheme of things here. If they're pushing on a fire on the floor below you, and there's a loss of water, whatever it may be, you got to get in that door. So let's talk about the bunny tool. No one wants to talk about the bunny tool. But on the floor above, it's almost essential, I feel like. I don't think there's time to screw around with conventional forcible entry on the floor above in a multiple dwelling. So I'm putting the bunny tool right in between those two and cranking away and going to work. Get in there and then close the door behind you to get some refuge. That's my take on it. But I love what you said about being closer to the lock now, more so than being 6 inches above or below.
Yeah, and what you just said, Mick, that takes me back to a question Jeremy asked earlier, and knowing your district. And I'll tell the guys that run the bar for me at work. I think it's Nick's quote, like the irons firefighter can become a pack mule really quick, right? Do I want the irons, the hydro ram, the bunny tool, the metal cutting saw, this, that, the everything, whatever kind of gadgets you got in the truck. Knowing your area, I have a few complexes within my response area that every single door on every apartment has a trident lock. If those guys don't come off with the hydro ram, we're short. So that what you just said there brought me back to Jeremy's question. That is super important, knowing your district, how that plays in the forcible entry.
Well, let me throw this on there real quick too, just very quickly, because I know we got a lot of Mid-Atlantic guys on here, and this might come as much of a surprise to you as it did to me. Is outside of the Mid-Atlantic, a lot of people have no idea what you're talking about, and they don't carry it. So there might be some, Yeah, it's kind of surprising, you know, because in our area we take that very much for granted. It's almost as much of a staple as the Halligan. So there might be some value in kind of expanding on that for a second, because I was surprised, you know, when I left the Mid-Atlantic area and found that a lot of guys did not carry that or did not know what it is.
That's the only prop I don't have here for, like, everything else you want me to. I got it. But I don't have a hydro with me. Damn,
that's awesome. I do want to make Jeff. Do you have anything? I'm sorry, man. Jeff, do you have anything you want to add on that before we go to the next slide?
No, yeah, like, you know, obviously a lot of these locks that you guys are showing, you know, we don't typically see them out here, at least where I'm at, you know, in the Central Valley. We do see the rim locks quite a bit, but I like what everybody's saying there, you know, shocking versus not shocking. I am a taller gentleman, so I start high on every door, and I just start camming off that doorstop, and I see what the door's giving to me, and I just work my way down. So shorter guys, everybody has a different, you know, attack method to a door. I think, you know, the individual side, it plays out a lot when it comes to forcing doors. You know, if you got a short, stocky guy, they go right for the center, or they go low. Maybe they go down to one knee and they start working off the lower part of the door and then up. I like to go from the top down. And then like Nick was saying, you know, if I encounter that lock up high, that's where I'm going to work. So I can spend my energy up high, and then I can focus down that when I'm a little bit tired, down low and where it needs to be at. But the rim locks, you know, it is what it is. I typically teach, you know, I'm going for the traditional force, and I'm going to see what it gives me after I start camming on that stop, and I go there because I'm banking on those locks not being locked, at least where I work, you know. So it's a fancy, cool little lock for most people. But again, you know, I don't have too many, you know, rundown areas where that lock is very prevalent being used.
Gotcha.
So yeah, a little different take.
Cool, man. I appreciate that. I just wanted to say one last thing before we flip to the next slide. You know, after what Mickey was saying, a couple of things popped into my head looking at that door and the lock setup there. And at the end of the day, the chain is usually what? Shoulder height. So that new lock above the chain is high. And it goes back to the conversation of these sets and reps, these kids bouncing on blue doors, and that the locking mechanism on any training prop or any training door is right at waist level, right? Where your typical knob and deadbolt would be. And then you look at this setup, and, you know, if you were to think that top lock is the only usable one because it's got the newest screws, it looks like the newest hardware and so on, that thing's probably going to be what? Shoulder height. So, you know, something to think about when you are thumping on doors for training, that lock is not always going to be in that position that everybody comes to rely on, especially on the blue door. So I just wanted to point that out. I think it's a good talking point down the road. So, all right, cool. We're going to move on. We're going to go to outward swinging. Pags, do you want to start the conversation on this?
I feel like, you know, we've been doing a lot of conversating, but give it to Mick, man.
All right, Mick, you're up.
That way, you know, he can start the mindset for us, and then we can roll after him.
He sometimes loses me. He's too intellectual for me. I'm just a dumbass.
What do we got? 1891 we're looking at?
Yeah. 1891.
Unless you want me to start off basic, I can just go real basic.
Yeah, you got this. Save me for roll downs.
I think the biggest thing, like anything else, is when you walk up, is it recessed or flush? You know, and then are hinges exposed or not? And that's going to show us, you know, which way it's opening. Is it inward opening or outward opening? And then at this door, obviously we don't have any hardware on the outside, but we have bolt patterns. And what are those bolt patterns telling us? You know, we got something running horizontally and we have something running vertically. So in my eyes, I'm thinking there is some type of horizontal bar that's in there, or possibly just a push bar. And then most likely on the door to the right where the numbers are not, you have something running vertically that is securing that door in place. If I'm completely wrong, by all means, tell me.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And what I mean, just piggyback on that, what that tells me is that the door with the 1891 on it is the door that is primarily intended to be open most of the time. And the other door, those are probably, you know, slide bolts that, you know, are mostly locked unless they need to open both doors. Does that make so? You know, to me, looking at that 1890, the door with the 1891 on it is going to be the one that's going to open quickest or first.
Yeah, good points. No, of course. I think
awesome point.
Absolutely. So how do we attack this door? Thoughts, ideas?
Kick it.
Gary, do it.
I mean, I'll take it as an OV position here. That's something maybe. I mean, you can whack at it. Get a pike in there. Get a purchase with the pike, baseball swing into it if you have to. That's like a pretty tight door, guys. We carry the metal wedges now. To me, it's a baseball swing right below those two locks in between, just 2 inches off that where the seam is. Get it in there, flex it back, see what you can do. But I mean, if you're the OV, this is like something that would be in a commercial, industrial, obviously, maybe a rear of a building. As far as I'm concerned, when I'm going to the rear of a building such as this, I'm carrying a forcible entry saw with me. I'm going right to the saw. I'm not going to waste time.
Yeah, definitely on the West Coast, that's a saw door. Like as soon as anybody looks at it, they don't even know what it is, so they're just going for the saw. Probably going for the hinges. They're not going to have much luck, but that's pretty much like the go-to on the West side, just because the conventional work just isn't here, and guys don't understand the concepts, and they're very reliant on the saw, whether they size up the door or not. They're just going for hinges, and then if that doesn't work right, they're dropping the doggy doors and all this, and it's just turned into a mess real quick, just because they don't understand what they're going after yet. They just get so amped up, and it's a hard balance out here. And I would love to come out there to the east side and just encounter some of these doors, but we just don't see it too much on our side.
Jerry, this could be anytime you want to come over. No, but it's funny. It's interesting for a lot of people that say hinges. I don't know if they've ever actually taken hinges. For most of that, it depends on how they're set in there, and they are not easy by any stretch of the imagination, or at least the ones that I've encountered are not easy to deal with. But I don't mean to stray from what Mick is saying. For me, this would probably be more of a try to get the ads in there and just set that and just start driving and see what we can do, or try to create that gap with an axe and start getting something and just work on trying to pry that out, because I don't really think it's going to be held on by too much.
I think there's a good chance that's just panic hardware.
Yeah. I don't see this really being engaged. They're very,
I'm thinking possibly it's a door they don't even use, and that's just bolted shut, possibly right across the back there. Look, like a loading dock, they just don't even use it. Doesn't look like there's much traffic going through there.
All good points. I mean, and that's the beauty of what we're doing here, right? Is size up is so important, and until you hit that door and until you start working on it, you don't know what you got there. And it could be just panic hardware, it could be slide bolt, it could be 1,000 different variables. But until you don't, you got to start working on that door to figure out what you have for sure. So, any last thoughts on that? I mean, that one was pretty straightforward, pretty simple. It's just a little bit different than a lot different than the first. Any other thoughts on that one? We're being conscious of time. We're going to keep scrolling through. Rob, do you have another one to put up?
Yep.
Beautiful. And guys, if you have thoughts while we're going, if it, something pops in, just throw it out there, man. Don't have to ask to talk. So I appreciate you guys hopping in.
While Rob's getting that next picture up, I will say that I had a door like that one time. Got in there with the ads and started, trying to open it up, and encountered some resistance, and it ended up turning out to be a nothing fire. So, we kind of really honestly never got the door open. And then later on went inside to see like what was up with that. And it turns out it was some homemade, like 1 or 1.25 inch pipe or whatever, like in a U shape, and it was kind of mounted up to the door. But then that pipe was chained back to another pipe inside of the building, and the building was a restaurant, and the pipe that it was chained to was the gas piping for the stove. So just throwing that out there, like I said earlier, one of my experiences has been that the craziest and most complicated shit out there is not going to be store bought with a brand label on it. It's going to be like some weirdo thing that somebody with a welding machine came up with.
Yeah. So how, before Rob gets the other picture up, let's talk about, some of you guys come from departments with really good staffing, and I'm thinking a few of you come from and ride with departments that are minimum staffed in a way. Riding positions, it's nice to have that OV and forcible entry firefighter, but if you're riding a 3-man engine or truck, I mean, some areas don't even have trucks, so the engine's doing all the work, right? So how important is the forcible entry position? And typically on, we got the picture up, but I just want to finish my thought. The importance of forcible entry. Without it, we're not getting in and we're not going to work. So on a smaller, on a minimum staffed company, intimacy with your tools and understanding that forcible entry game is super imperative. All right, cool. Let's go. We got some gates here, some roll downs. Who's going to roll on this one? Who's going to go first? Joe, Joe, would you mind hopping in? And then we'll go from there. I want to get you some time on here.
Yeah. Looks like we got a commercial occupancy, 3 roll down gates. Looks like hockey puck setting, hockey puck framed locks, to accept the American hockey puck. With the roll downs, they come in different styles to where that they have paneling that you can see right through. These are obviously sealed to where you can't. That could kind of gear you toward how far advanced the fire condition is. That's going to kind of drive how you go about attacking the entry point. Obviously this isn't blocking a door because you have it 2/3, 3/4 of the way up from the ground. So you're not securing a door in this setting. These are just like windows. So obviously that's, if we're going to make entry in the occupancy, we got to find the door. We got to find the front door to the occupancy to get in. These look like a manual style roll up gate as opposed to an electric style. I think the deciding factor on how you're going to go about attacking these is, again, driven by fire conditions. Where is the fire located? How advanced is it? Time of day? It's all going to play into your size up rolling in. And that's going to dictate whether you're actually going to attack the gate or if you're going to go to attack the lock. Again, if the fire condition is heavily advanced and it's actually impinging or impeding on that front area to where the gate is located, the decision may be made for you before you even get off the rig as far as what you're going to be attacking. And what I'm getting at with that is if the metal is compromised in any type of way, you may not have any choice but to attack the gate. Even if you get the locks off, if the gate is inoperable, you're not going to be able to roll it if it's been affected by fire conditions.
Good. Who else? Guys, don't be afraid to hop in.
Jeremy, I'll jump in something there. So
do it, man.
A couple things with roll downs. So obviously with that picture there, you see where they weren't fully down, right? So let's say that picture is, and I got something here for you, believe it or not. Can you see that? Right. So
hold on. Rob, can you take that down, put us back in the gallery, and then I can bring up I can switch it over to the speaker view. Go ahead, Mick.
All right. So just sizing up the building, right? A roll down. So if you don't know where the door is, this is just something that can draw you in. I always talk about size up on the fly and reading buildings, their personality, all this bullshit. But when it all comes down to it, is that when you have 3 roll-ups like this, right? And you're not sure where to start your cut, where to find that, locate that front door, how to get into that building. There's a few things that draw you in. The first thing with this gate right here is you see that, right? That's new. That wasn't around for many years, but those are kind of new. And that kind of dictates where you're going to start your cut. That could be the front door. But let's say that slat's not open. It's a full slat, right? And it's a blank. It's a blank roll down. You don't see anything there but roll down. If you draw it in on the address is usually above the door. If the door is down here, it would be there. Most times the address is above the door. Okay. Now let's break it away even farther. See that area right there? So think about how many times you walk down the street, wherever you may live, and there's a bodega, a deli, an office, anything you can think of, ice cream shop. Right in front of that door, left and right of that front door, there's usually gum wrappers, gum, garbage, trash. It's very dirty on that sidewalk. So when you're looking at that in the middle of the night and you see smoke out of every roll down and you don't know where to begin, you can take your flashlight, look down at the sidewalk and take it all in and see, okay, it's almost a funnel of gum on the sidewalk, trash on the sidewalk, drawing you in that actual where that gate is, where that door is, right? Now, once you get that gate, and say fire is impinging like Joe was saying, right? So now the only option you have is to cut the gate. You're not cutting locks. You're going right to the gate. Cut sequence, right? Okay, so let's just say that's the door right there. See the door, the roll down's halfway there. Engine company stretching, fire's impinging on that gate. It's cherry red. And if you've never seen one, you will someday. The gate is actually cherry red when they say that. The gate becomes red. You can't touch it. You can hit it with the line if you can't find it. A lot of times, if you open up the line on the roll downs, the one that the fire is impinging on will create steam. Another way of finding it. But if you find the gate, now is a cut sequence. So you're going to cut this gate opposite of what you're cutting the first one. So you cut one, then you cut two. Now you're cutting the wrong gates. And the engine bosses are going to start screaming at you that you're cutting the wrong gates. You tell them, I got this. You own the saw. Then you're going three, you cut that, then you're cutting four. That way, you can open up this roll down, step away like a gentleman as the engine advances into the fire, and then you just come down here, finish this cut, and finish that cut, and the adjacent stores go up. So it's kind of hard to follow on here. I just printed it out because we really weren't prepared for this, but cut sequence, break it down. Front door, adjoining gates. Cut the adjoining gates, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the actual fire store, then 5, 6 out here. Goes up, they go up, you step away like a gentleman, engine company goes to work. That's it. That's all I got for that. I got more, but I can go on for hours with this. I'll let someone else jump in.
Awesome work.
I don't know. We're all just sitting back listening, Mick. I mean, it's pretty good.
I'm still trying to follow the gum trail. I mean,
right? Cigarette butts, gum. I mean, jeez.
Nobody took out the Italian broom and started cleaning. I don't know what happened.
Next time you're walking down the street of Main Street, USA, wherever that is, it could be rural area. You're walking down the street, take a look at the sidewalk, and you'll notice right outside the storefronts of all the front doors of all these stores, it's a path of just gum. People spit the gum out for some reason before they walk in stores. I don't know why, but look down, you'll see it.
I just wish that the nuggets are phenomenal, my
friend. Oh my God! Every time I sit with this guy, it blows my mind.
It does.
I love it.
It's like I'm getting my PhD.
Yeah, that's right. The problem is who's going to go next now? Who wants to step up after that one?
Listen, we'll send it to the West Coast to follow that up, man.
Well, let me hit on this, right? Because I don't have gates. It's very rare that I go to fires with gates, and I think that's probably more common than not, right? Across this great land that we live in. So, does fire impingement on these gates, does it tweak and torque and screw them up to the point that they're not that easy to manage?
They do, yeah. And it's not often you get that. You get that middle of the night arson job possibly, but like when the place is cranking, it's cranking, you turn the corner, but it's not something that's common, but when you have it. I'm sure Matt can jump in there with that, but it's something when you do get it, it's like you kind of have to work with the engine. Sometimes you have to wait for the engine to get water to cut these gates because you start cutting, fire's coming out of this gate and you're not prepared. I mean, you need that engine there maybe to kick back that fire, to get in there, to actually cut that gate sometimes. The second you drop that saw in, it's the same way if you're on the roof in a flat roof, you drop that saw in, fire comes up, you got to be ready. But when you're cutting a roll down, about a big component of operating above you, but some departments teach that inverted V, that the inverted triangle cut. When you're operating like this and you're cutting a gate like this and fire's coming out, I mean, that's no place to be. It's not a good place to be. When you're working waist level, like when you're cutting roll downs in a curtain cut, I can show you that. I got a bunch of things here, but when you drop the saw down, you're working waist level, and that's okay. You can actually maneuver around the fire. But when you're working like this, man, you're totally vulnerable. I don't like that idea.
One thing I will kind of add to the conversation here is that another thing that I kind of discovered, when I left the Northeast kind of city kind of thing, is that the slatted roll down stuff is a pretty unique thing that not a lot of places have. I mean, there's some places they have that all day long, right? And you do a lot of that. But what I mean that to say is that there are a lot of people that will take this conversation and we'll try to apply that to a panelized residential garage door. And not all garage doors or all roll down doors are the same construction or respond the same way to the same techniques. So, again, if you to go back to the forcible entry nerd thing, like if you're in a forcible entry, like you're eating up, you're picking up. I never picked up the gum nuggets before. I'm never going to forget that. But I want to make sure that guys understand that, different styles of doors, different constructions of doors require different techniques. And so you do kind of got to know what your district has so that you understand those differences.
Nick, can I ask you, do you guys, if you don't have the slat construction, do you guys have hockey puck locks though on your roll downs or on your garages?
You do find them on, you find those around here on everything from a contractor's work truck to, a rear or front door on a commercial, to a door at a storage facility. So you do certainly see those. And there are some areas where you see the classic, metal slatted roll down. But in a lot of areas, just because those things have a certain appearance to them, they've phased those out just for kind of street, for what do they call it, curb appeal purposes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey Mick, it's crazy. I was actually I was down in Philly the other day, Buffin, of course, and I saw.
Go figure.
Glad you made it back.
Yep. So actually, believe it or not, the only lock that I saw was the earring style lock. And it was, there was a lot of them on the commercials that had the shields or the guards, but that was on everything. And it was on the doors. It was on the roll down gate. It was on everything that I saw. And it was just interesting that I didn't see one hockey puck lock of the American Series 2000 for those who aren't 100% sure of what we're talking about.
Yeah. And they're not really too, I don't know too much about them, but they're not too secure, those locks. The hockey puck lock, I think, is much more secure of a lock.
Not at all. That's why I was surprised by.
From buying them for classes, I can tell you that probably one of the reasons for that is like, whatever series American is up to now, that's like a $25 or $30 lock. Whereas those earring locks are like $9. You know what I'm saying? They look pretty fierce, but I think it's an economics. But you're right. They're definitely not nearly as secure as the circular locks.
So being that we have hockey puck locks everywhere in the nation, probably just maybe not roll downs, with hockey puck locks, you're going to have tracks where it slides up and down. So just real quick, to attack that, instead of it going across I know Champ just had a post come out recently about how to cut the lock. That's a great way to do it. Another way to do it is, and that's 2/3 from the keyway. And when you do that, you have to size up the guard to where that keyway is. For example, if you see this is the keyway, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, right? Hockey puck locks, keyway. So if that's twisted like this, now your saw is going to be operated differently. And that's called a cradle cut, right? So you can actually hold the saw like that, like a cradle, okay? And that's with forced door training. I got that from them. But that's a great way to maneuver that saw sideways to cut that hockey puck lock the way you have to cut it. Another way to cut it, though, the way I want to touch on real quick, and we'll move on if you'd like, is on the rail, okay? Now, I have the red up top and bottom, but I kind of modified that because you want to get less area to pull that lock. So if you can cut on a V shape like that away from the gate and then put your Halligan in and bend it out like this, where is it? You bend your rail out and you're essentially pulling the pin. That's a pin. Everyone wants to know a pin. You're pulling the pin that's inside. That's a roll down pin, but there's something similar inside the hockey puck lock that's engaged in there. And that's the hole you're pulling it out. So when you bend it out, that's essentially what you're doing. So when you look at the lock, you get confused with it about what do you mean by the rail and this and that. So very simple. Cut a V, slide your Halligan in, bend it out. That's the hole that comes out, and you slide it up like a gentleman. I've talked enough.
Mick, huge. I got to be honest with you, huge fan. The technique that I go for most times, it's phenomenal, and it's funny in the same respect. people don't think that you're going to be able to bend that or the pin's going to pull out the way that it does, but it's just simple. And it really is a great go-to.
Yeah, it worked. I mean, this fire actually, I cut this lock right here. And I actually screwed up because when I bent it out, I actually bent the rail where now I couldn't lift the gate because the rail was bent. So now I had to cut the gate itself. So I kind of screwed myself. But sometimes on these older ones, they're real flimsy. So you got to watch. This is a small bodega. So when you're dealing with the bigger building, it's more substantial. This was a more shitty like rail. So it kind of bent the whole system and kind of debunked my plan of attack. Had to go to plan B or D, but it happens.
And the other thing I just want to jump on, quick point, is what you talked about earlier with the extension of your arms as your tool. A lot of guys, you think you're not familiar with how to use a Halligan bar. How about a saw? That cradling method. Everyone just thinks, because we always think, all right, I'm just going to pick it up when we operate on a flat surface or on a peak roof. They don't think about how to cradle it, how to work it above their head for certain things, because there is times that you do. It might not necessarily, it might be a simple lock that is high, not necessarily cutting a gate, but you need to be comfortable with doing, operating that in all different facets.
That saw is like a Rubik's Cube when you get the hang of it.
Who else? That's it.
I think I got 2 roll down doors in my district, in whole city.
Joe, I want to ask you. You had a good one. I think you posted last week on the man. I'm blanking on the word, but not the slatted roll down, but the the see-through roll down with the lock cylinder. Didn't you post that last Friday?
Yeah,
kind of a similar thing, right?
Similar, yeah. It was, so the gate was the same. It was the actual locking mechanism. It's just a smaller medical brand. It's believe it or not, it's like $125 lock. So they're very obviously expensive. And the design of that is like, to Mick's point, to where you're trying to just relieve whatever's blocking through the rail, through the gate, through the back of the rail. This has like a tail, so that when you insert the key, you're manipulating the actual tail on the back of the thing, so it doesn't line up to where you just pull it out. So it's the same concept. You just the point of attack on that is you're just trying to defeat that tail, which is a brass pin. Brass, as we know, is a softer metal. That's like the weak component of the lock. And just like any other operation, there's a few different ways to attack it. Conditions will drive that. Tools available. Jeremy touched on before. Personnel. It depends how many guys you have off the rig. That might dictate if you have a guy as a partner with you or you working solo, what tools you may bring. But yeah, the rail cut, as Mick was just talking about, you could pull the actual lock face, but the idea is that you're just defeating the stem, which is brass, which is inserting through the bezel of the lock through to the back of that tail. And again, it's $100+ lock, so it's definitely a substantial piece of equipment.
Awesome. All right, so we got we're gonna go 90 minutes, so we got 10 minutes left. Where do we want to head from here? What's the last 10 minutes gonna be? You guys choose. Throwing audible back to you.
I'll just tag on to what.
Yeah, please do it, Drew.
What Mick's channel cut on the roll down, and one thing that just covers all forcible entry. I don't care if it's a roll down or an apartment door or a residential door. You got to have plan A through J in your pocket. After J, I start making shit up. But in plan A, might have completely screwed up that door or that gate to the point where your plan B or C is not going to work. And that's what it comes down to, is there's so many variables that go into forcible entry. Not only the type of the door and the type of the locks, but the condition of that door, the condition of that rail. When Mick went to bend it out, screwed that plan up. He had to move on. He had to adapt, right? So it's identifying these variables and how they affect your plan and of attack. It might dictate your initial plan of attack, and how that unfolds in the operation is going to dictate where you go from there.
Well, and kind of piggybacking on what Drew was saying, I think there's really 3 things that go into this, right? Is so you have, recognizing what a door is, right? Like, so, I've seen this door before, like I understand what it's set in, I understand how it's built, and I understand how it's going to react. And then you have, your tools that are available to you, and you're like, okay, I got this complement of tools. I know what their strengths and what their weaknesses are. I know what techniques I can do with them, right? And then, with you personally, what techniques you can do with those tools, right? And so, kind of like Vicky was saying, it's almost like I like the Rubik's Cube kind of thing. It's almost like you got to link those three things up. Is like, what skills do I know? What tools do I have? And what opportunities does this door present? And it's that opportunity of taking like, okay, what are the strengths, or the potential strengths of the techniques and the tools that I have available? And what are the weaknesses of what I'm trying to defeat, and matching those things up, right? And that's, I think, where the variability comes, because every forcible entry, opportunity is a different combination of those things. When I came up, in Prince George's County and in DC, and I don't know if it's still like that now in DC, but I will say that when I was on the truck, the officers were very liberal in when they let us force a door. It's a medical, force the door. It's a water leak, force the door. If it's a fire alarm, force the door. If it's a box, force the door 3 times, right? I mean, it's so, we got to force doors a lot of times, and nobody ever said nothing, which was great. But that, that gave you a lot of opportunity to find those strengths of your techniques and tools, and recognize how different materials or how different doors are going to react to those techniques or tools.
Love it. What do we got? Where are we going? We got 7 minutes left. What are we doing with the future of this forcible entry? What? Ed.
What? Why?
Do it.
I'm backing up on kind of.
You're making me talk too much. You guys are the stars here. Let's go.
You're just the face of this operation.
Ugly.
You know what? Just kind of like what those guys were saying. I'm a big proponent. You're only as good as the last door that you forced. It's just like the last fire you went to. And I'll be the first to admit I've had a simple, something that appeared simple from an outsider's perspective, defeat me, on something like an inward opening insert door that I thought I was going to have no problem, just didn't go the way I thought it would be. And it kind of made me look a little foolish. And luckily it has been on those routine emergencies. And just like Chief said, we had the opportunity to force at a lot of, on every run that we go to. Water leak force, elevator force, whatever, EMS run, force the door. It's everything. So, it can humble you though. And that's a good thing. You want to be humbled every once in a while because it'll put things back in perspective for you. Because if you just walk up, spike a door, throw it open, you're just going to get too comfortable. So I think the biggest thing is start to get, if we can take one thing from the door props, it would be that it creates a process for us and to stick with that process. I know that Drew just said it. He, I got plan A through Z. I don't. I got plan A and B. And when B fails, I tend to go back to A, and, because you get a little frustrated. So, kind of stick with that process. Understand what your tools are going to do for you. And it might be a little bit more difficult than you thought it was going to be, but just let the tool do the work and you'll eventually get it.
Jeremy, real quick before we go,
do it.
Something we skipped over was something that, they teach basic 101 Fire Academy. Try before you pry, right? Try before you pry goes far beyond just seeing if the door is open. You have to kind of size up the situation, the building you're in, and the circumstances that we're living in today across this nation it's in dire needs of help, and everything's falling apart around us. Fire duty is up, which is great, but so is crime. So if you try before you pry and that door is open 4 a.m, there's a good chance you're dealing with SROs, and every other door is going to be locked after that. You have families living in rooms, not necessarily apartments. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Like, if you go to try before you pry and the door's wide open, you're going to be dealing with a lot of people in a situation where you're forcing a lot of doors internally in a fire apartment or the floor above.
Mick, do me a favor real quick. Just explain SROs, because I just want to make sure everybody is familiar with that might watch this. No, that's okay.
So SRO is a single resident occupancy. I guess it's maybe a city urban term, but the way things are going in this nation, I think you'll be seeing that across the nation in residential homes. So, and what that is that the front door is now open, common areas. So something that everyone lived in is now common. and the bedrooms become their apartments, and they share the bathroom in the kitchen. So like I said, try before you pry. If you try that door and it's open, there's a good chance at 3 a.m. that there's SROs, or you're dealing with multiple people, multiple families, or worst case scenario, divided up apartments with makeshift walls that could get very deadly because people can't get to fire escapes that way.
Good points. Very, very good points. I appreciate that. Good words. All right. So we wanted to keep it to 90. I'm not cutting it short. Does anybody have anything else or anywhere they want to go? If not, we're gonna start the wrap. So what did we miss? I mean, listen, we could go for days on this topic. And I challenge you guys too, since you guys are organized in who is putting out content on what Friday. I would challenge you guys to try to do something like this once a month as a group. I think the 6 of you bring an incredible value across the board to the fire service. And I think what was said in the last 90 minutes and even Mickey's drawings and, nuggets on chewing gum. I mean, I'm telling you, man, like tonight was good. And I just think that you guys, you guys work for different training companies. You put out your training content. You guys do it because you love it, and you do it because you want to share the message. I think something like this is just an incredible opportunity for educating a lot of people. And I challenge you guys as your Forcible Entry Friday group from Instagram. Maybe you guys should talk about maybe doing this once a month. We'd be happy to host it, whatever you want to do. I don't care. But I think you guys have a lot to share, and it's just good to get you guys together, get some faces to the names. A lot of people follow your content, and they don't know who you are. So it's just nice to put a face to it, get some stories behind it. And I think you guys did a real nice job with that tonight.
We're all going to lose followers now with the Star face.
You might. I mean, I get it. It might be, right? I mean, but hey, what are you going to do?
I'll tell you what's funny. Usually like we talk about, a lot of people say, oh, you put out a lot of information, or you go around you get to teach. The reason I do this is actually selfish. I learn things, and I'll tell you something. I'm a better person for doing this tonight because of what these guys kind of nuggets that they dropped. And it wasn't just Mick; it was every single person.
Absolutely.
It was Mick, it was Drew, it was Joe, it was Jerry. It was and it's been an absolute pleasure. And Jeremy, thanks for hosting this. You and Rob did a great job. Appreciate it. And I'm sure I hopefully can speak for the group when I say we can do. I'd love to do this again.
Bags, that is the nicest thing you've ever probably said to me ever.
Well, we're still recording, right?
Yeah, we are still live. Yeah. So I appreciate that. Afterwards, you can whip me like you usually do.
Check your text.
Yeah, there it is. Right. No, please stop sending me pictures. Please stop sending. So anyway, let's wrap this. I do want to give you each like just a minute or so. Where can people find you? Behind Forcible Entry Friday. Talk about your Instagram page real quick, Joe. Since you're the first in my list here of my window, just where can people find you on Instagram or social media, and if they want to reach out, etc.
At just as it displays on the screen at joe.grossi.jr on Instagram. You can reach me.
Awesome.
Ask questions, whatever.
Good,
Thanks
man.
for having me tonight.
Yeah, of course, man. It was good catching up, and you and I you still owe me a date. So, and that just sounded weird how that came out. So I'm talking about a date on the calendar, but sorry, Joe. Sorry. I swear it's real. Anyway, Chief Nick Martin, man, you're next in my window here. So, wow. Where can people find you? What are you doing, etc.?
I don't know where we're going to go on our date, especially Joe, I'm going to compete with Joe. N Martin, my initials N Martin 33 on Instagram, and just Nick Martin on Facebook if you're on that kind of thing. But again, just to echo Matt's comments, I love this. I pick up these techniques from everybody, and it's a privilege to be surrounded by like-minded people from different environments, that are going to say things that you might not have heard before and make you think. So I got a lot out of this. Thank you for having us.
Good, man. Of course. Anytime. Drew, how about yourself, brother? You're right in the middle of my screen.
So Instagram is really the only thing I do, and it's Andrew18752. I've been told that's like the worst Instagram handle. It was like no one can remember it, but it probably won't change. So do that. I work with Nick doing the combat ready fire training, and I started doing this because I want to spread the little bit of knowledge I have and gain even more. And that's what it's all about. You know, we've got a group that spans from East Coast to West Coast now. And my only goal is to give everyone every little tidbit that I've ever picked up along my short time on this earth, try and make the fire service a little bit better.
I love it. Cool, man. Thank you for sharing tonight. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah.
Other clowns I've met before, except for you and Jeff. So it was an absolute pleasure meeting you tonight. And thank you. I'm looking forward to doing more projects with you, man.
Absolutely.
Jeff, what do you got for me, pal?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the time, and I love listening to all the guys out here. So, like I said, I need to get over there and learn about some of that construction over there. But we got a couple of acquireds that just got offered to us, so I'll be posting some West Coast stuff here pretty quick, and
awesome.
We'll see what goes from there, man. Appreciate
Looking forward to it. And they can find you on Instagram. What's your handle on Instagram, just so people can find you?
Yeah, Blue Collar TN.
Awesome, which is Blue Collar Training Network. So, Jeff, thank you, brother. Pleasure meeting you tonight as well. And again, looking forward to doing more stuff with you in the future, man. Thank you. Right on. Mickey Farrell, talk to me, pal. Top Floor Tactics.
That's it, man. Top Floor Tactics on Instagram. That's all I got going. Reach out to me. We're more than happy to chat with you. But really, though, thanks, guys, for putting this together. Rob and Jeremy, I mean, honestly, what you've done to the fire service is tremendous. And I'm not just saying that and I'm not just kissing your ass. I really mean that. And I've told you in the past, you brought a life into me that I never thought I had. I thought I was done with this job. And a few years ago, you brought me back to it with just your passion passed on to everyone else. So bringing us together tonight, I can say I made some new friends tonight, but there's some friends in here that are lifelong friends now. And thanks to you. So thanks for hosting it. And looking forward to doing it again, man.
My man, thank you. And because you're so eloquent, we're just going to end right there. Sorry, Pags. But all right, Mickey, thank you. Mickey, thank you, man. I value you. I value your content, our friendship, like everybody else here. And you mean the world when you say words like that. It just reinforces why I can say for myself, and I don't want to speak for Rob, but it just reinforces what we do. And I thank you, brother. It's awesome. Last and certainly least, Matt Pags, what do you got, pal?
Listen, it's already been said, so I don't know why I'm say it again. But
did we start with you? I don't know.
Did we start with me?
No, I don't know. Just give us your handle and say goodnight.
Yeah,
and then
Boogie Down Truck Work. I have the pleasure of the fortunate opportunity to teach for on-scene training. Now that we're getting back out there, it's great to know all these guys. It's great to know you guys. I'll tell you right now, exactly what Mick, of course, stole my words. You guys are really just changing the fire service and how the messages are delivered. And we really appreciate you allowing us to do this platform. And you know what? If anything, we love interaction. All six of us love interaction. If you have a question, it's not stupid. There's no such thing as a stupid question or a comment on our pages. By all means, please, when we put up something, ask us these questions, get involved. I loved when our buddies over at Firefighter Proving Grounds were able to offer up some goodies as incentives to get some content flow going back and forth. And maybe we'll look forward to doing that again, get some swag going. It's just about getting interaction between everybody else, and so that we can learn and spread the message better.
Awesome, brother. Thank you very much. Robert Ridley, where can people find you and why do you do this?
You dragged me into it. Fairview 39, National Fire Radio.
Listen, brother, thank you for being here again tonight and doing the tech on the back end with the slides and everything. So I value you more than you know. To all of you, thank you for being here tonight. The kind words, but really what you guys did tonight was drop some good ones, drop some good nuggets for literally everyone in the fire service tonight. Guys that are willing to do this like yourselves, bring another level of value to every single firefighter in this country and across the world. And it should be recognized that you guys take your own time to share the knowledge. And so for what you guys did tonight, man, kudos. Awesome. It's just top shelf. And I appreciate all of you for doing that. I do want to say this too. I know on National Fire Radio, we get a tremendous amount of direct messages, and Pags just hit on this before. I'm sure you all welcome the DMs and try to get back to everybody because you are sharing the message and sharing the knowledge. So I do tell everyone that does watch this, if you have a question, engage. Engagement means you're into it. Engagement means you're like-minded and you want to find people that you want to engage with. And these gentlemen right here will certainly do that. So I just filled up your DMs for the next couple of months, guys, but good luck with that. But again, thank you guys for being here. We're going to sign off tonight with this live, and just an incredible night with the stellar Forcible Entry crew from Instagram. So guys, thank you. Tomorrow is Friday. Whose post is going out tomorrow? Do you even know yet?
You think we're that organized? We're not.
Awesome.
I was going to ask.
We actually have a schedule. And if I'm not mistaken, it's going out to our West Coast brother.
Yeah.
Okay, look at this. See, the man is on the ball. That's why I bring the West Coast, bro.
That's it.
And I'll be home tomorrow, so I'll get some stuff.
Beautiful. Well, and on that note, guys, thank you very much. And for Rob and myself at National Fire Radio, thank you for tuning in tonight. And we'll see you next time when we bring these guys back out, and we'll do another episode. So we'll see you soon.